Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with Illa Gezey. I am your host, Illa Gezey. On this episode, we will be talking about when punishment turns into abuse. Today, 31 inmates got paid $1.2 million. Not because they were innocent, but because of how they were treated while they were on the inside. We're talking about no natural light. We're talking about exposed wires, losing their minds in the darkness. I got a question. When does punishment turn into abuse? Let's talk about it.
12 years, 85%. I did it. I stood on it. Thing about the streets is you can be caught up at the wrong place at the wrong time. I still got partners out there. You can't expect everybody to see things the way you see it when everybody didn't go through what you went through.
Real topics, real stories, real events. Get my real outfit.
Welcome back to Real Talk with Illa Gezey. Today we will be talking about this incident. This happened at a Miami Correctional Facility in Indiana. That's the name of the facility, Miami Correctional Facility in Indiana. 31 inmates filed lawsuits back in, I want to say 2021, backed by the ACLU of Indiana. And the state ended up just settling, just now, a couple days ago, for $1.2 million. Now, there's two ways to look at this, but let's just start and understand it like this. This wasn't about the inmates trying to finesse the system. This was about terrible conditions. No working lights. Windows covered up. Exposed electrical wires hanging. So when they trying to navigate through the darkness in the middle of the night, you know, some of them getting stung by the wires. This is what they were living in, and some of them went for months at a time. This isn't just rough conditions. These conditions, to me, sound normal, and that's weird because these guys just got civilly paid for the conditions they were living in. Yeah, the $1.2 million, if you divide that up amongst 31 inmates, it's going to be a little over $30,000 per inmate. It's really not a lot of money, but I guess it is. It depends on every person's situation. But I've lived in these same conditions in the South Carolina Department of Corrections. Why don't we have nobody to help us? Like how the ACLU of Indiana is helping these guys. That's a deep question that needs to be answered responsibly by the right people. Now let's move on. These conditions are terrible. Now prison isn't supposed to be comfortable. If you did the crime, you do the time. A lot of us made choices, and we have to deal with those choices, with the consequences that come behind our actions. But there's a difference between discipline and abuse. A lot of the living conditions in prison are abuse. They are inhumane. Now, we're supposed to be protected by the 8th Amendment. We're supposed to be protected by the 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. We're supposed to be protected by that. But while I was back there, I've seen some cruel and unusual living conditions, including these same ones that we're talking about. And these guys, I think they said they had metal pans or metal sheetings covering their windows. I can't remember exactly what it is. I can pull it up exactly. Let's see exactly what it is. Okay, they said placement with metal covered windows. Basically, they just welded the metal and covered the window like that. In South Carolina Department of Corrections, in a few different dorms, on a few different yards, I know for a fact they have the windows painted where you can't see out of it. No natural light coming in. None. I believe there is another yard where they do have the metal flaps welded up. Nothing can be seen coming in, nothing can be seen coming out. That's how they want it. They don't want you to see nothing coming in the dorm, and they don't want you to see nothing going out the dorm. They call it a security situation. But as you can see, with these inmates right here in Indiana getting paid for living in this type of situation, it lets you know this is inhumane. Nobody should be living in these conditions. Nobody. And it gets worse. In South Carolina Department of Correction, it gets worse. It gets worse. I'm telling you. That my platform is open for stories like this all day long. I ain't just trying to tear no institution down. I'm trying to build them up to make it better. I'm not trying to harm nobody or make nobody lose their position. But we need to be treated like human beings, no matter what we did or where we go. At all times, this is how it needs to be done. There's a line. And discipline versus abuse is a line that you just cannot cross. You want to discipline people because they're in prison. A lot of the times, the correctional officers, that ain't even your job. Your job is to be there and just be a supervisor, basically. You watching over them. The sentence that was applied is already enough, taking people away from their family members, friends, loved ones. Those sentences that were already given to these guys were already enough. Discipline. Now, the harm, the abuse, the neglect, it's how you feed them. You got them living with dirty water, undrinkable water. I remember being at Libre Correctional Institution, and most of the time, the water would smell like rotten eggs. And I just couldn't drink it. And it's been times where I wouldn't drink nothing for at least 3 days, go the whole weekend, because you couldn't get out the room to get nothing else. So you had to drink whatever was in the room. And that was I couldn't even take my medicine. And you have to take your medication, but I couldn't take my medication because I wasn't about to drink no water that smelled like rotten eggs. It was weird to me. Like, I don't know, man. But let's talk more about these guys. The mental impact. This is the part where people don't really think about. These guys were in a dark room. Think about being in a dark room, closed out, no light, all to your thoughts. You sitting in the darkness long enough, and your mind start turning against you, and you start hearing things, and they start telling you to do things. It'll eat you alive. You gotta be mentally strong, and everybody don't have that. And can you blame them when you put a person in a situation like this, where it's very much inhumane, a complete shut off room? This is like complete torture. This is almost like something you would put Osama bin Laden or one of them in. That's what you would think. You would put them in something like this. But to put just regular guys back there, you don't know what these guys locked up for. These guys wasn't named. Only one of these guys was named, and that is the one who first filed his first. He was the very first one to file a civil lawsuit, and his name is named. Other than that, I don't have the names of these other guys, so we don't know what their sentences were. We don't know if they're still incarcerated. Some of them, I'm sure some of them are, because they filed this in 2021. This is 2026. I'm sure some of them are still incarcerated, so it ain't about the money. It's about the psychological destruction that was done to these guys. Thinking about self-harm to themselves. Just sitting in the darkness, their mind just straying away, and just, you don't know what kind of breaking point a person can get like that. And when you're doing something like that, you ain't preparing them to come back to society. You're preparing them to be worse. You're preparing them to have mental destruction. And that ain't good. Nor is that easy to overcome without the proper help. Luckily, these guys, I hope all of them have got the proper help. Some of them within their complaints, they did mention self-harm was one of the things that, they dealt with the psychological aspect of it. So I hope none of them actually off themselves or unalive themselves. Now let's talk about this. Let's talk about the move that the state made by paying or agreeing to pay, which is settling. No admission of wrongdoing, which is basically hush money. They want to be swept under the rug so they can change the narrative. That's what this is about. The problem with that is, if nothing changes, then the payout was just another day in the office, business as usual. These cases like this, sometimes people go in it for the money, and then some people go in it for the change. The main thing is, are other inmates going to be living in these same conditions? Or did they change that? Because change needs to be made. The psychological damage you've already done to these guys is already done. Change needs to be made for the ones that's going to be back there in the future. Now, at the end of the day, this isn't about defending the inmates. This isn't about attacking the officers. This is mainly about accountability. I believe I did episode number 6 or 7 about accountability. You can go back and check that out. Accountability. It reflects on the system as a whole. Just like a person has to be held accountable when they commit a crime and you want them to do the time. When you violate the policies that are set in place and under the constitutional right, when you violate these things, somebody got to be held accountable. $1.2 million sounds like justice, but it's the same conditions still going on right now at Miami Correctional Facility in Indiana. That's the question that needs to be answered. This has been another episode of Real Talk with Illa Gezey. We don't sugarcoat nothing. It's just real conversations, real perspectives, giving my real thoughts, real opinions, and stuff that others just won't talk about or they're afraid to speak on because of the powers that be. Make sure y'all subscribe, hit that hype button, drop some comments about what you think inmates' living conditions should be like. See y'all next time on another episode, Real Talk with Illa Gezey. Peace.